Hello and welcome. What makes this particular tutorial unique is because I won't just be teaching you the software, I'll be focusing on the process. And this process will enable you to create consistent results. So we'll start from composition down to lighting, applying material, rendering, and then we'll conclude with animation. The enormous power possessed in the simple software D5 Render will enable us to achieve this with high quality ArcGIS standard. Take a look at the finished product we are going to have at the end, and then let's start. See you in class. I was able to get this model from my friend at Simple or Difficult. You can check out this tutorial in full at his channel. I'll leave a link in the description. So let's begin. The first thing we want to do is to export or sync to D5. If you're working in 3D Max, you really may not need to export. The best thing I advise is to sync. If you have two screens, it makes it easier. So you should have installed the D5 converter by now. So select it and click Start or Stop D5. This will immediately start D5 up for you and then import the projects there. So once we're in D5, once the project loads in D5, I'm going to produce this rendering using the basic steps of creating realistic rendering. So the first thing I want to do is composition, to set up our camera to look like what we're expecting it to be at the end of the day. So this is our target. This is what we are hoping to get. And the camera I have is already almost close to that, but I can go ahead to set it up. So the first thing you want to do is to create your camera. You can do that by just clicking Create Scene. But before then, we can set it up. So this is a 2-point perspective camera. If you press the F8 button on the screen, it's going to keep your view in 2-point perspective. After that, under here, you go to camera setting. Here you can set some basic things like the focal length of the camera and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave this at, let's say 28. It's almost close to what we have already in the view, which is okay. And if you come here, there are two ways to navigate to the camera. One is orbit, the other one is fly. When it's on fly, you can use the keyboards like the W, S, D, A, Q, E to arrange the view. And you can also click the center button and drag left or right to pan the view. You can also scroll in and out to set up the view. And this is basically it. While it's in orbit, you can do much more than that. Like orbit suggests, you can orbit around the point. You can click, right click, and then also orbit around the point. I'll click Create New Scene by just clicking here, and the new scene is created. If I want to create more scenes, I have to click this other icon. Or alternate S will add a new scene as a shortcut. So I feel I've created a view almost looking like what it's on 3D Max. So this is close to what we would require. And once we have this, you can update your scene by bringing your mouse here and clicking this refresh button. It updates the scene. And also to finalize your composition, you can click on this image button and set your image size, which is very good to do early on while you're working. So we can play around with the sizes until you've gotten something close to what you want. So also, while setting up your camera, you see this option here to zoom in or zoom out or change the focal length. It's still present even while setting up your camera. So we have this option present in D5. If you feel like you have made a mistake while choosing the camera, you can do that, adjust the focal length again at this point, and then still achieve what you had in mind to achieve for your camera. So this is okay. I had to change this focal length to 25, adjust some of this height. Once I get a good combination, you can uncheck this so that whenever you adjust this, you still get the same size of image. So this is okay. I can refresh my render, my scene here. Whenever you adjust your scene, to save it, you need to refresh. If you forget to refresh, it's going to affect you negatively. So the first part of composition is to set up your camera. And the second part of the composition is to populate your scene in such a way that the elements within your scene look realistic and then they look very rich and interesting. So it's always good to do this at the beginning of the work. for us to start, I would like to convert my display view to clay mode. You see, I've not done anything on lighting yet. So whatever lighting you are seeing in this view, whatever feel you are getting is basically all from the default view in D5 render. So if we go back to our reference image very quickly, we can see that we have a lot of tree vegetations at the back and some here and some hedges and so we'll start from the back, populate the scene, we'll put some vegetation here and put some of this element here. This is very important to do early on in the scene because it's going to mean that you understand the view you are trying to create. And also with regards to composition, I would like to mention here that if you have a reference image, it makes things way more easier. Even if I wasn't doing exactly this building, if I was using this as my reference image, it's going to speed up my work. You can toggle off the camera view by just clicking this and hitting the M button. The M button is going to lead you into the D5 library, which is one of the best libraries I've come across. Although it loads from the internet, but once you download a library component, it's downloaded in your system. So what I want to do is to first put in those background trees and the rest. So if you click to nature here, I want to start with low poly trees because these trees are far from the camera. So I can click on it. It's taking a second to load because, like I said, it's from online. But if you look at some of all these trees, I've used them before, like this tree. So they're already loaded and I don't need to load them again. So once I click on it, it's active. And even if I close this, you can see the tree in the view. So another good thing about D5 render is that you can work in 2D and 3D. For this, I want to work in 2D. I'm just going to tap the T on my screen and it's going to be in 2D. And this is the area I want to place my trees. There are various ways to place this, but now I'm just going to click to place. Now, when I click to place, you see it comes with an icon there. If I tap escape, then the tree I just placed will be highlighted with the cursor. If I tap the V button, it flickers between movement and scale. With this, you can easily move or scale a tree you just added at the background. That's one good thing about it. Maybe I want to add this tree again. All I need to do is to type Ctrl D with this selected and a new tree pops out. If I type the M key and I want to use another type of tree, let me say this one, I can click to select and you see this tree is slightly smaller. Once I place it, I can escape, use the V button to scale it. Maybe if I wanted it bigger or something like that. If I wanted it smaller, fine. If I use the Ctrl D button, it gives me exactly the same size of this image. If I tap the M key to select it again, it gives me the original size of the image. It's very versatile. I'm working on plan, so once I go back to my view, now there's something I didn't update my view when I converted it to clay mode, so that's why. So for now, I'm just going to update the view since I don't want the pictures. So you can see I'm compositing, so that's my major aim here. So the final thing in this composition will be to add the car at this point. So luckily for me, I have this exact car, so I'll just go ahead and place it. So this is how composition works, and it's a very important tool in creating photorealistic render. So thanks for watching. In the next step, we'll look at how to set up our sun and sky and cast shadows in such a way as to replicate the realism we are seeing here. So catch you in the next step. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, share, and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Peace. For lighting, there are 3 things you should always seek to master. First is the understanding of lighting, primary light source, and shadow. Especially if it's in a daylight exterior, the primary light source is the sun. Always try to create shadow in your foreground and some aspect of the building. Secondly is reflection. Always try as much as you can to have good reflective elements and things to reflect it back, so that your reflections, your glass don't just reflect the horizon directly. And then 3 is the interplay between light and shadow in your scene. So there should be some light and shading hitting your building. So we can see this view nicely composited by Jerry Kendrick Briggs. You can check out his Instagram for very wonderful inspiration and renders. So this and that view from this same building, and you can see the composition, the light, the shadows, put on the ground, on the building, and just very neatly organized. So let's go and begin. So the first thing I want to do is to recreate the sun position. In D5, for you to start working on light, let's start with the primary source of light. There are 2 types of ways to work on light. We have the HDRI and then the normal sun and sky. So I'm just going to follow up with the sun and sky. Now, for you to start working on lighting in D5, there are 1 setup you need to do. You need to turn off auto. And don't forget, I'm in clay mode. So when you turn off auto, come down here, turn off bloom, make sure this is set to 0 so it doesn't interfere with whatever you're doing. You might leave this white balance for now. Make sure nothing is applied around this section. I think it's very important to start from there. If you feel your camera is overly exposed just for the view, we can start at minus 0.1. This is fair. Come back to environment, and we're under Geo, Sun and Sky. I'm just going to set up my sun first of all, then before I go ahead setting up the sky. If we look at the view we are trying to recreate, the sun is hitting the building in some areas, like from this section, because you can see this and you can see this shadow falling, the shadow of this tree falling behind. So the sun is coming somewhere from here and this. So all these other shadows are falling on the building and the foreground, and we can see the reflection somewhere here of the sun. So here doesn't get the sun. So the sun is possibly coming from this top, and you can see these sharp shadows here indicating the sun is hitting both on the rooftop on this section of the building. So let's try and see if we can recreate that. In D5, it's pretty easy. If you move this around, you move your sun around. And if you move this, adjusts the height of the sun, and this will adjust angle of the sun from the north. So I'm going to set this somewhere around, let's say, anywhere between 11 to 2 p.m. So at an angle, just to get these sharp shadows as indicated here. And we can see the sun falling this way. This section does not have the sunlight. This section has, this section has, this section has. So this is good. Now, like I always advise, once you work on your view, you always need to update the scenery. So that's very important. So whenever you do some settings like this, like adjust the sun position and stuff like that, you always have to update the scenery. This can also be important, some settings around the latitude and longitude before you start doing the North Pole. I'm going to just bring this closer to the equator, like 15 and 8 somewhere where Nigeria is located. Now it has messed up the north offset of my sun, but I can just click and drag till I get it right back to where I want it. Good. So this is almost where I want it. Fine. So this looks good, and I've set out my major source of sunlight. So I'm going to update this view. Now, to create shadows within the foreground, all you need to do is to have to place trees outside of the views. Now, sometimes the trick is this. You may not always have to place the trees on the ground, because take, for example, this particular sun. It's coming at this angle. If I start placing trees on the ground, might somehow be very difficult for me. So you can, one of the tricks you can do, you can place trees outside of your view, but way above it. So let me give you easiest way to do that in D5. Click on T to go to the top view. And then you can tap on M to go to the materials. Click on model. And because these trees are not showing, I can pick a low poly tree if I want, or pick a high quality tree, whichever one. It's okay to go by. Whichever one you want to go by, that's okay. So I'm going to pick this one, and then I'm just going to place it a little bit outside of my view. Now I can place two types of trees just to create different shadow types, and this also. Remember in the last video, if you tap V and then you click, you can create a height. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this to vegetation close. Now this might be within my view, but that's not the issue now. I'm going to also raise them a little bit higher than normal. So if you tap F, you go to the front elevation. I clicked to select it. I'm just going to raise them a little bit high this way to be in the path of the sun. And voila, you can see I've come back to my view and I've been able to create some shadows, and now the tree is showing a little bit here, but it still doesn't matter. If I wanted to, alternate V will enable you to orbit. So if I wanted to, I can orbit, and I can move this a little bit this way. I can look at how it's affecting the shading in the building. So something of this nature, and the ground too. So with this, I'm casting shadow in my foreground. I need some shadow somewhere here in the building, somewhere here, parts here. So I'm just going to click this view and see. Fine. So this is beginning to look like the foreground I want to create. I still want more shadows here, so I can still add one more tree in the foreground to make sure that I get that right. So I'll go to the top view and can click, use the shift button, just copy, drag it somewhere here. So scaling these trees also can be done from this place, a little bit up or down, just to get the feel of what we want to create. So if you tap the F button and the Z button, you can get to exactly to the particular tree you are working with and maybe do stuff like this. So I've gotten good foreground shadow in the front. I have some good lighting, and just very simply, if I don't want this tree to show, it's very easy to just select it and move it out. But it showing is also giving it this feel that yes, there is some vegetation to the right, so there is no problem with that at all. So we've sorted the issue of the sunlight. We've also sorted the issue of creating shadows. The next thing is reflection. So for us to undo reflection, the first thing we want to do is to apply materials to the glass. We'll select the speaker here. It's a material picker. The shortcut is I. So I want to select the glass materials here and then apply material to them. So I'll select this material. Under the material template, though we're not working on material, the only thing I'm going to do is just to change it to transparent. So, and then ensure that the roughness is at 0 and fairly specular. I'm going to change the color of the glass a little bit dark. That's all. This is very transparent glass. Mainly my glass is, as you can see, is reflecting the sky. Some part of it are reflecting vegetations that, just popped in a little bit. So, two things. If it's a daylight render, we can start by, applying some curtains just to, create this difference in between the indoor and outdoor that is not too dark. So we can start by applying some curtains, one. And secondly, we can also start by placing trees and buildings opposite it so that we can have some reflections around it. So let's start with curtains. The next thing I want to do is to add vegetations to improve the reflections, just like we have here. So don't forget, these trees I placed here were placed high up. So most of these vegetations that are above, I can select them maybe for want of time and decide that I'll bring them down, just somewhere here where the trees will be directly in front of the building, and see how much of reflection we can get. So you can see we have very nice reflections on this surface of the trees. We have a view of the curtains. So in this video, we've been able to sort out the lighting. So one more thing we didn't do, although if we chose to, we could, was to, put 1 or 2 light sources inside of the building. So it's an option you might want to explore, but it's not something that is a must. Opposite the view you are working in, but since this is a daylight, I don't always advise it. So opposite the view you are working in, you might decide to just put a light there, light source that reflects on the wall or something, as long as it gets through to the view you are working on. Fine. In D5 you can set the scale of the light, the color of the light, based on the temperature. The intensity of the light can also be reduced or increased. So is this always necessary? No, not in all situations, but if you feel like you need to do it, then you are welcome to. So it's not, for me, it's not something that must be done. There is something I did at the beginning where I touched exposure a little bit and the rest, just to ensure that I'm getting what I want. If at any point in time you feel like you need to adjust this exposure or make it a little bit brighter or something like that, you can easily do that with the numbers here. I turned off the bloom because I didn't want this feeling of bloom. So before we round up with the lighting, exterior day lighting, there is a way to also tweak the skylights in D5 Render very easily. You can turn on the cloud, and then you can use some of the settings on that cloud. So if you turn it off by default, maybe the cloud might be moving due to the speed. You can turn that off. You can play around with the height of the cloud, raising it up or down. So for me, when you bring it down, it looks a little bit softer. So that's another trick you can use. You can play around with the density on how white or blue you might want it to be. So this interplay here makes it less, bluish, like it was looking all through before. So the thickness of the cloud means the amount of cloud that will be there. Basically, we don't want it to be too thick, so we can reduce it as much as we can. In the amount of the cloud, you can see it affects the general amount of the cloud totally. So reducing it down, reduce the clouds, and then bringing it up will increase the cloud. So this has an effect on the rendering. If you look at this, this is how this view is, and then this is how this view is. So you can see how the reflection on the glass have changed due to the fact that I worked on the glass. Adjusting your sky can also give you this kind of view feeling, and there are a lot of settings here. If you allow the sky to also cast shadows, if you check it on, it can create some shadows, and rotating the direction of the sky can also adjust how those shadows interact with the building. So reducing the amount of the sky is also something very critical in trying to, let's say, downplay, control every other thing that happens within the sky. So this is just a quick tour on how to play around with the sky and get other feel, so that you don't feel like you're just restricted to this feel. These are 2 different fields of how we can get skylights within our projects. And if I turn this off, also this shadow goes off, and we'll play around with it. This is where we are going to round off this video. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll be looking at application of materials and preparing our works for final rendering. So in D5, material application has been made easy because D5 has given us the opportunity to access high quality materials without necessarily leaving the application. So if I tap M on my keyboard and you go through D5, There is model, there is material, and there is particle. A lot of these are free. If you want to have access to everything, then you have to have the paid version. I'm using the free version for this tutorial. Item here has a wood finish. So I'm just going to go ahead and, search for wood here. Tap M, search for wood, and pick something that is close to the wood finish that we are trying to achieve. Okay, I'll use this wood even though it's not exactly the wood we have, but I'll tell you how to adjust it. So I'll click on the wood, we can click close, and once you click on the material, it follows your cursor, and once you click on the face of the material you want to apply the material automatically applies. There's something I forgot to do in the past video. The display is on clay mode, so I'll need to change it from clay mode to the normal viewing mode. So right now you can see the material I just applied. So I'll go ahead to edit this material. I'll type I on the keyboard, click on that face of the material, and once I do that, it's going to bring out the third tab here, which is Inspector tab, with all the properties of the material. If it's a D5 material like I have, it normally comes with a lot of other maps like the normal, the specular, the roughness. So that's to tell you the quality of maps they have. So the only thing I might want to do here, basically first of all, is to set the size. So I'll come here, turn on triplanar so that it wraps it into 3 faces like a solid wood, and after that I'll adjust the stretch till I get the right size. So you can click and drag left or right while observing the size change in real time, and once you get, let's say, the right size of what you are looking for, you could stop. So I've just dragged this to this point and the size already looks okay to me. The next thing I want to talk about is how to adjust the color of a particular material. Maybe I have this wood, the feel is okay, but not exactly the color. You can do that in 2 ways. You can come to base color, click on it. Now it's not exactly on white, but if I take this on white, you see the color changes. So if I drag this around, you can see the feel of the wood and the color is interacting until maybe I can take it to somewhere I feel it's okay. So adjusting this color can help you tweak something that necessarily the material is not exactly what you want, but you can tweak it to something like what you want. I'll go ahead to repeat this material adding process. I'll tap M. I need a wood for the edges, just normal wood finish within this section. So I can download a wood like this, maybe this particular wood. I'll come to these edges, click on it, and the wood is applied. You can also add rounded corners. So you can see what rounded corners does for you. It bevels this corner a little bit. So if I increase it, you can see the feel it gets from there. Like I talked about the color, if you scroll up in the color here, you can adjust the feel of the color by having an interplay here and there with the color. So this is just one way to do it. There are still other ways. You can make this brighter. You can play around with the colors here. Also, going through the color map and clicking this, you see there are still other options, to either increase the brightness of the element you are working with, to reduce it. I might just leave this one like this for now, and let's continue. If we select the material, if we use I to select the material, you can also edit the custom material by adding your own maps or just touching up the color. Let me say in this case, I just want to make this wall a little bit like a dark wall, which I have done very easily by just dragging down this color. If I want to reduce the roughness, increase the reflectivity, do some little things around with the work, you can easily do that. Let's talk about applying metals like this roof eaves, the downpipes, and aluminium to the edges of the window, which can also be easily done without much ado. If you select the material, like for example, I don't want to just stress myself going to adjust under the custom. I can leave it at custom actually. I'll bring this down to, let's say, a deep gray like this. And all I need to do is to increase the metal feel of that material, reduce the roughness depending on how reflective I want it, and increase the specular depending on reduce the roughness depending on how smooth I want the reflection to be. You can see that on the metal. And then the specular would talk about the extent of the material. So if I scroll back, I can decide, oh, I need more specular on this for it to get more sun and less roughness. So that I have the feeling of a metal. And the same thing applies for aluminum frames. The next thing I want to do is to show you another trick, especially with applying of grass in D5. There are two ways to go about this trick. If you click on this, there is actually a grass material in D5 that allows you to you click on it and it generates 3D grass on object. And all you need to do is maybe pick the kind of grass you want and then adjust it. Now, when working on foreground material in D5, and this is very important, like in this case, we have gravel. Although we have displacement in D5, but I'll be honest to say that it's still coming up. This is gravel. We have maybe gravel ground. I can select something and just apply to the ground here. I didn't feel comfortable with the size of the gravel, so I just have to adjust the UV mapping, the stretch here. It's not as perfect as I want it, but I'm going to just go with this. I want to go back to this grass material very quickly, just prior to the ending, because there is a better way to do this. I'm going to just leave this at custom. So I can do this, and we have a brush tool that can allow you brush other components like model and grass. Yeah, so if you come here under nature, you can find grass. We can actually search it by typing grass and then search them. If we do, it can bring out some grass for us, and we can use the brush tool to brush it because we are not having so much grass. So you can see we have different grass clusters here that are free. So if I pick this and let me say turn on my brush tool, and I can pick maybe one or two, but let me just start with one. There are certain settings here we can do. One is to turn on align to terrain. We can also reduce the size, increase the density depending on how we want it to be. If we don't want too much random size, we can just turn this up on a bit, just a little bit like this, and also increase the size of the radius. So if we do this, you can see the size of the radius in this screen way. We can decide to reduce it depending on the size of our scene. And we can also decide to reduce the size of the grass depending on how we want this. And then we can actually polish on the surface of the material we want to. Now the disadvantage of this is that maybe it might polish on another surface we don't want to. But the advantage is that we have more control over a lot of things. And then you can use the brush tool to brush elements. Now, if you notice, because I'm brushing from far, we have some elements on the wall. There is an eraser tool here that you can just use to clean up things that you think are off the border. Now, this tool have many variations. There is one that is a path tool. There is one that is a brush tool. And like I said, you can adjust the size of the radius. I can also choose two grasses at the same time and try to create some contrast, maybe in between an existing set of grass, like I'm doing right now, with having a feel of touch of white in some places. So that's another advantage of this particular tool. For the path tool, let me say I select this and I want to use the path tool. Let me say I go to the top view by clicking T. You can use the path tool to have particular elements go across one line. So let's just say towards the edge of this particular element, I want to have a lot of grass. These grasses are looking big, but don't worry, since it's along a path I'm creating, I can decide immediately the path is created, press escape. You can select the path, and there are a lot of things to do here. You can increase the number of elements on the path like I'm doing. You can reduce their size to be very small like I've done. You can decide that you have random offsets from one another. Okay, this, I don't want that one. But I want like random spacing between one another. Maybe random directions, but not random spacing. So I can come to the 3D and just, then you can also bring these things down, much more lower than you want them to be. The feeling you want to achieve is okay. So I don't have any view here, and the extension. So let's say I'm working on the line and I want to add more points to the line. So you can select it, and then there is an edit tool here. So this is how we adjust this. You can click and drag and have more. And when you are done editing the part, you can also increase the number. You can also increase the number of you are looking to use. Let's say I'm using this type of class. I can decide to add another one. Just with this application of materials, we've brought to life the whole thing. The high quality materials in D5 makes it easy for people to get into D5 and just become professionals. Now, even elements that you added in D5, you can adjust their materials. Let's say these trees are looking too black. I can come here and increase their brightness. I can select this. I can go to the base color map and also increase their brightness. So something of this nature, I guess. Something of this nature. It's getting white anyway, but you get the joke. So let's say you don't want that feeling of so many dark trees. You can also increase their brightness behind you. So the next step here will be for us to work on our rendering. Rendering in D5 is very easy. So before we go into rendering, I want to see if I can place realistic gravel models in the foreground of this image to make it more realistic. So I went to 3ds Max, got this gravel model, exported it to D5. I've just imported it into D5. Before I start working, this is a tip I want to share with you. If your system is not that powerful, you can, under display, set the real-time quality to smooth. This will reduce the strain of showing everything in real time on your system. So I'm going to click on the model and bring it in. You can see we have a size problem already by default. I'm just going to adjust this to, let's say, 600, and let's see how small it becomes. So this looks very okay. Now the challenge will be to scatter it all around the view. There is no option to brush or scatter in D5 using locally imported materials. Maybe as we go on in the future, that will be added. But for now, in D5 2.5, none. So I might just have to copy it around and spread it. So I'll go to the top view, and I'll do the same thing on that display, put it to precise instead of smooth, so that it's not very clear. And then I can, even on this view, put it to wireframe. So basically what I want to do is to copy this around. So I've been able to sort of replicate realistic gravel instead of using materials. This is really important because, like I've said, working on your foreground to be as realistic as possible is key to having a very good realistic render. So I've created everything in this layer, and if I turn it off, you notice everything goes off. Why is this important? It's important because you don't want to have it on all the time, so that you don't have it on all the time so that you don't get caught up with a very heavy file. So if I want it on, I'll just come here, turn it back on. So to begin rendering, I'll toggle on the camera button here by clicking on it once, and it will take me to the render mode. The render mode comes out with what kind of rendering I want to have. If it's just an image or a panorama, it shows me my field of view, the degrees, it shows me the focal length if I need to adjust anything, and then it also allows me to set the aspect ratio. The next thing here is options for channels, and this is very important if you are going to work on your file after in Photoshop. Which under effect, like I said, is where you can adjust one or two things. One is that we've set the exposure while we're still setting the sunlight, and so we are free to play around with that. This is the contrast is at 0. You can just take your time to see, okay, what and what you might want to do here. It's almost like post-production inside D5, and you will see the result in real time. This just goes to show you that you don't need to work in Photoshop if you don't want to. So I'm good to go, and there are two ways to render. You can have batch rendering by sending it to render queue. So if I click on, let's say, the first scene, and then I click add to render queue, it goes to the render queue. You see a blue dot coming up here. If I click on the second scene and also say add to render queue, it also goes to the blue dots here. So if I click the render queue, you see that I've added 2 images, and then if I just select this all, set the location where I want the rendering to go to, and then I can ask D5 to close after rendering, because D5 always saves before rendering. So I can actually ask D5 to close after rendering. So I'm going to set this to this new folder, and I'm going to render these 2 images and click on render. So like I said, it saves the project, and then it proceeds to render the 2 images. This is where D5 is very good compared to a lot of other softwares. Depending on how you've composited your scene, your rendering can take from between a few seconds to a minute or 2. So it calculates the time for the rendering. For me, this is anywhere between 1 minute 35 seconds for an image to render, which is very, very fast. And this is the real-time advantage of D5. So I'm going to render these 2 images, and don't forget they render with all their channels. So that's also something very amazing. So we are done with the rendering, but before I show you the render, this is a render that motivated this whole tutorial series by my friend Simple or Difficult. You can check out the tutorial on his YouTube channel. I'll leave a link in the description. And this is what we have been able to create from that using D5 render. D5 tutorials with the next step, which is animation. If you click on this section of the video, this video icon, it takes you to the animation edit panel. So it toggles it on and off. To click it once to go off, click it to go on. I can set my display to smooth so that it doesn't drag my system to go through the animation shots. So this is the animation shots I've created earlier. So I'll go ahead to show you how to make this. So it's very easy. I have some scenes already. I can just click on those scenes to start from there. And under clips here, there is a button. If you click on it, you can create a new clip, just like I did here. And if you double click on the clip, you can rename it. So let me say this is the intro shot. So I can type this and say intro shot. Now to create my first shot for the intro shots. So to record the first shot, I'll click on one of the scenes if I have it as my starting point. And then I can click add current view. Now I've done that. Now there are various ways to move in your animation. This is the first shot I just gave the animation to start with. I'll need to give an end shot. Now depending on how you want to move your camera, there is orbit and there is fly. Now when it's on fly, you can use the buttons of WASD to make shots or movement that are linear. So if I do this, and I have very short place to take my animation to. So let me just say I'm moving my animation in. This is a linear shot. I've made a forward movement. To click the next shot, you just come at the end of this point and click this one, and you have a shot. The time of this shot is here. It's automatically put here. If you want to be able to adjust this time, you have to come to view interval and put it to custom. So you are able to adjust this. So if I press the play button, you can see the shot playing. If I reduce it to, let's say, 7 seconds, and then take it back to the beginning and press the play button. Let's say I want to just reduce the whole length. I can stop here just to reduce the speed of the animation and press the refresh button in between. So what this does is that the animation will feel way more slower like it does now. So one good thing about D5 Render is the fact that you can adjust the intervals between shots. So let me give you an example. I'm using my scroll now to scroll to this point in the shot. So let me say I just wanted to do a close-up shot. From this one, I move this close, I press the button, it creates a new shot, and then I want to change it to orbit. So I'll click on orbit. I'll click somewhere I want to orbit around and then move my camera left or right. So this is what I'm just doing here. And then I'll click again. So if we come down here, you see between the first shot and the second shot is 7 seconds. Between the second shot and the third shot is 3 seconds. And between the third shot and the fourth shot is 3 seconds, making it a total of 13 seconds. I just want to adjust this because you can click on each of them and adjust it. So I want to adjust this to 0.5 seconds so that it feels like a jump. And then on this one that is 3 seconds, I want to make it to be 4 or 6 seconds. So if we play it, so I know why this thing is hanging quite a bit. I guess it's because of the gravel layer I've put there. I've removed it. So what I need to do is I want to recreate this shot without it. So I'm going to do this, hide it, and then click on refresh. So I had some very serious gravel throughout the shot, and it's been a source of it's very heavy, to put it mildly. So I've hit the gravels, and you can see how smooth it is. So sometimes if you have some very heavy model within the shots, it can lead to this. So you can see what's happened now, the smooth transition in between those clips. So now I've done this clip. If I want to create another clip, I can click this, and let's say I want to focus on the car here, so I can put this as a car clip, and then I'll click OK. And repeat the same process over and over again. So I'm going to, is with the orbit on, I can just click one of these scenes, though my gravel scene is going to appear again. I'll just hide it. And I think if you want to be able to move freely, you can use fly. Maybe if you have something, I think orbit still works better. Whichever one, just position your mouse to where you want to zoom to, and then you are able to do that. So I want to just focus on this car for this shot. So keeping the car in view. And maybe I can do some close-up of the car together with the building, something of this sort. So this is fair for me. I can easily adjust the camera size and the rest here to make it more of a close-up shot than a fast shot. So if you're having a close-up shot within, so this angle has to increase, let's say like 35 mm. So this is very good for close-up shots. So I'll leave it like this at this point. And then I'll click to add the first camera. I'll use the orbit. The orbit is on. I'll use the orbit to, let's say, add the second camera. So I can just play it to see how it feels. So this looks good. Like I said, utilizing the ability of D5 to, adjust speed when doing an animation is marvelous. So let's say I can jump to the front and do the same audit again this way. I might want to avoid that. I want to make it this close. So if I come back here, it's on auto now. So I'm going to change it to custom. I'll adjust this one. Let's say I want this to be 4. I want this to be 4, and I want this to be 0.5. I like to use the 0.5 jump, you know, just gives me a little. So let's play it and see. So we can see that jump, you know, the movement, the quick movement in between. So this D5 for you and its ability to take both close-up shots, fast shots, and the rest. My focus in this view was just from one view. So I have 3 clips already, 1, 2, 3. And this works very well. So once you are done setting up all your views and preparing for the rendering, the next thing you want to do is to come here, set the resolution. So D5 can export in 4K, 2K, 1K, and the rest. So I'm going to set mine to just 1K, which is okay. The format is in MP4. I think you might have more formats if you're using the Pro version. And you can also set the frame rate. So I'm going to set it to 30. I can select this clip, then click Add to Render Queue. So you have to add each of the clips to Render Queue. If you do that and add 3 of them to Render Queue, if you are done with that, you can come up here and you'll see this Render Queue button. Click on it, select all here, and then it will ask you to select a folder where you can save the animation, which I will just set this folder, which I will select. I'd select this folder and select, and then it will ask you if it's to close D5 after the rendering finishes. If you are done, fine. If you don't want to, fine. But why this happens is because D5 is so intuitive that before it starts any animation, it always saves the project. So you are not afraid of losing any files prior to that. So I've set it to render. And when it's done, I would now go ahead to compile the videos and edit the renders I have, I think maybe in Photoshop or Premiere Pro or any other software, and then have it exported.